not on. Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sir, can you please turn on your microphone?
Welcome to the Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting, October 5th, 2023. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Zoning Board of Adjustment has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting. It has prominently been posted in the municipal complex, an announcement giving the time, date, location, and agenda of this meeting. Mailing such announcement to the Home News and Tribune. Also filing a copy of such announcement with the municipal clerk. A few housekeeping items. I'm sure everyone has a cell phone in here. If we could silence the cell phones. This is also being televised simultaneously on YouTube and local TV. There will be a 15-second delay. For the record, a public portion will take place at the end of each testimony. Roll call.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Mr. Stoner?
Here.
Ms. Chevalier?
Here.
Mr. Scogno?
Here.
Ms. Andrews?
Here.
Mr. Izzo?
Here.
Mr. Victoria? Mr. Dasty?
Here.
Mr. Dargy?
Present.
Mr. Gill?
Here.
And myself, Maureen Porcelli.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, at this time, we are going to go into a brief executive session so I can update the board on some matters that involve pending litigation. So I would advise the members of the public, it would only be a very short executive, 5, maybe 10 minutes. So if you could all give us a little bit of time and we'll tell you when we're ready. So Mr. Chairman, if you can entertain a motion to go into executive session at this time.
So I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Move it, Andrews.
Andrews moved it. Second, Ms. Chevalier.
All in favor?
Mr. Connor? Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
That's my fault. Sorry.
It's
Go
okay.
ahead.
You want us to do a roll call?
You want a roll call? Mr. Connor?
Here.
Mr. Stoner? Ms. Chevalier?
Here.
Mr. Scogno?
Yeah.
Ms. Andrews? Here. Mr. Izzo?
Yeah.
Back into open session. We are back into open session. Roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Connor?
Here.
Mr. Stoner?
Yeah.
Ms. Chevalier? Here. Mr. Scogno?
Here.
Ms. Andrews? Here. Mr. Izzo?
Yeah.
The first matter of business tonight is a completeness waiver, matter 44-2023Z, MCB Landscaping LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for reconsideration by the applicant's attorney, Mr. Collins.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman and Council. Michael L. Collins of King Mention Collins on behalf of the applicant, MCB Landscaping, as mentioned. This is application 44-2023Z. Would it be helpful for the board for me to explain the legal background, or?
Yeah, Mr. Collins, if you don't mind, I'll just kind of tee it up a
Sure.
little bit. Ms. Sawant issued a review memorandum dated July 26, 2023, indicating that she has reviewed the waiver request. It's for block 11257, lot 4, otherwise known as 4244 Highway 516. The waiver request is for item 3A, environmental impact statement, 3B, community impact statement, 3C, traffic impact statement, 3D, aquifer recharge assessment, and 3E, the report for the stormwater management. Ms. Sawant's review memorandum recommended the items be waived. Mr. Collins?
That's correct, Council. Thank you for the summation, and thank you to the board for your time. At your previous meeting, the board took a vote to deny the waiver request. We were not present at it because we viewed the waivers as being pretty perfunctory, but as a result of the board's determination, we respectfully requested a reconsideration opportunity so we can come back while present to try to explain our desire to have these waivers in this specific case. My client is present here tonight, and the property is a residential property in which he stores certain commercial vehicles to the rear of the building. He was cited by the zoning officer for being inconsistent with zoning, and immediately after receiving that violation, retained myself and also hired a planner and an engineer in order to make application to this board in order to remedy the zoning violations. In order to do so in as thorough and as quick a manner as possible to address the zoning officer's concern, the application was made on a bifurcated D-variance basis under NJSA 40:55 D-76. And the real reasoning behind that is to allow this to be submitted to the board for a determination on the use issue first, specific to whether or not this commercial can exist on the residential property, and only if the board reaches that determination, it would then proceed to a site plan application, which my client has mentioned in the application, involving a potential pole barn, some screenage, nothing major, but the reason for the bifurcation is really to get a prompt determination on the use issue, and then if that use is granted by this board, and only in the event that it's granted, you would then have the opportunity to fully review everything on site plan, which my client would then go through the process of obtaining the necessary due diligence to submit to this board. And at that time, the board would decide the site plan. And unless and until you decide the site plan, the use isn't ultimately approved. So I think all that said, the board is protected by granting these waivers on the front end here, because ultimately you would be able to have certain due diligence done as part of the site plan stage. And specific to the waivers in question, again, the environmental impact statement we would submit is would be onerous given the nature of a residential property with a couple of commercial trucks and back. In terms of the community impact statement, again, the use would be determined by the board on the front end. We're asking to have that opportunity, and then we can discuss these issues later on site plan. Same with traffic impacts, and in fact, those may be modified based upon what is considered as part of the site plan. For instance, if you allow a pole barn that has one bay versus two, that's going to be impacted at site plan rather than the use stage. The aquifer recharge, your planner recommended to be waived, and we would concur, and the same with the stormwater report. So for those reasons, we respectfully submit that the 5 waivers should be granted and that the board would be protected, given the bifurcated nature of this, which I don't think was called out at your last meeting. And I wanted to have the opportunity to explain that to the board and to be heard on that. And I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions you may have on the waiver request.
Will there be any further testimony from the owner?
No, I don't, Mr. Collins, I don't think that's, you need to do that. It's just really a.
Yes, my client is present here tonight, we certainly didn't envision testimony. If the waivers are granted, which we hope, we believe we could be complete and then come to a future board, and my client can certainly testify as to the use. And we also have a planner and an engineer that are ready to do so as well.
Very good, thank you. We'll go to the professionals.
I don't have anything for this matter, Mr. Chairman.
I don't have anything either.
Board, starting from the left, any comments?
So, Mr. Chairman, I mean, you can ask for a motion to grant the reconsideration to grant the submission waivers, as noted in the July 26, 2023 review memorandum of Ms. Swan.
So, board, would someone like to move the motion?
I'll move it, Stoner.
Is there a second?
Chevalier, second.
Roll call?
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Mr. Izzo?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, that moves us into our applications for this evening. We're going to follow the applications in order on the agenda. The first one, matter 60-2022Z, has been adjourned to December 7th. Anyone here on that matter? Will that require notice?
It will not. It's being advertised right now that it will be carried to 12/7/23.
Correct. There is one more adjournment, matter 55-2023Z, David Merwin. That is being moved to November 2nd. Anyone here on that matter? There will be no further notice, moving that to November 2nd.
That is correct. And, Mr. Chairman, I do believe the last item is also adjourned as well.
St. Mary's.
St. Mary's.
November 2nd.
Yes.
And that's moved to
November 2nd as well.
November 2nd.
That's 45-2023Z, St. Mary's. That's also November 2nd.
Very good. So that brings us into matter 37-2023Z, Old Bridge Properties, LLC.
The only game in town.
Just push the button there. There you go.
Good? Okay. I see all new faces, but actually, I was here 20 years ago getting this Lowe's project approved. And no one at that time, certainly not us, ever expected that Lowe's would close in 10 years and after building that huge building. But stuff happens, as the saying goes, although it's usually said differently. But in any event, the client is Old Bridge Properties, and the managing member is here tonight, Robert Byer. And he's been searching very long and hard to get a replacement, and we've now have come upon one. It's actually, we think, a wonderful thing for Old Bridge because this would be one of Tesla's largest sites in North America, I believe. One thing I do want to raise at the outset, there was a lot of phone calls today. But there are some inconsistencies between the Raceway Petroleum site, which is right next to ours, for the site plan that was approved for that site and our site. We did meet with Mr. Mamakis in the hallway. He's going to facilitate a meeting next week between their engineer and our engineer, their principal and our principal. We hope to have this all worked out and be back before you so we can we don't think it changes a whole lot, but there's issues that just need to be ironed out. So what we're hoping to do tonight is put in the entire case, but we're not going to ask for a vote. And as I discussed with Mr. Dasty, we would ask for you to carry this to the November 2nd November 2nd meeting. We know there's no room for us on that agenda. We will request a special meeting, and hopefully at that meeting, you can carry it on the record to whatever the special hearing date would be, and that would prevent having to renotice. So with that, and just also for the record, Christopher Vitale is the counsel for Raceway. He is in the back of the room and does not anticipate speaking tonight as long as I made that stipulation on the record.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I think that is probably appropriate to let the applicant proceed, and if the applicant and the adjoining property owner can hopefully have a powwow and work out their differences, that'll make it, and obviously the board would be part of those discussions to make sure that any, agreement, if you want to call it that, is memorialized into the decision of the board. But I think proceeding, letting the applicant make their case, carrying it to November 2, and then have potentially as a control date. And then between now and November 2nd, the applicant can talk to the board office and also the board of professionals and Mr. Vitale to get a special meeting date where they would be the only one on the agenda to finalize the application.
Right.
So if the board's all right with kind of proceeding with that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Memaro, please.
Starting from the left, any questions on that request? Very good.
Okay, thank you. And for the record, the meeting that Mr. Mamakis is going to facilitate, or said he would try to facilitate, would involve the board's engineer as well. So your professionals will be part of that conversation. They'll be the referees. So, okay, for the record, it's 1324 Route 9 South, Block 6302, Lots 2 and 2.14. Tonight, we have a couple of witnesses. I'd love to get through all of them, and with the, I think the only witnesses we would have to come back with if we get this worked out would be our site engineer and possibly our traffic engineer. I'd like to try to finish everybody else tonight if I could. We have 4 representatives from Tesla here. I assume you're probably most interested in hearing from them. We're planning on only calling 2, but for the record, there's Brendan Lefebvre, he's fire protection. Steve Lukashek is staff design. Anthony Falasco is the regional collision manager, and Trevor Bridge is the associate regional manager. So what I would do is ask maybe all 4 to come up and just be sworn in, and then you can be seated in the front row and maybe respond to questions as asked. But all 4 would have to identify yourself on the record and that first, and then raise your hand. So. Oh, sorry.
Nobody up here bites, so it's like a school bus in here. Sir,
Oh, thank you.
can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear affirm to testify truth in this matter before the board?
I do.
Can I have your name, sir?
Stephen Lukashik,
Can you
staff
spell your...
design manager. It's Lukasiuk. You were close.
Sorry about that.
And you're the design manager?
design manager.
Staff design manager, okay.
You can just have a seat in the front row there.
How you doing? My name is Trevor Bridge.
All right, Mr. Bridge, can you swear affirm to testify truth in this matter before the board?
I do.
And let's have your name again, sir. Trevor, spell your last name?
Bridge, B-R-I-D-G-E.
Okay, and your position?
Associate Regional Manager representing sales, service, and delivery.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, do you swear affirm to testify truth in this matter before the board?
I do.
And can we have your name, sir?
AJ Falasco,
Spell your last
Falasco,
and your position?
Associate Regional Collision Manager.
Okay, thank you, sir. Do you swear affirm to testify truth in this matter before the board?
I do.
Can we have your name, sir?
Brendan Lefebvre,
Can you spell your last name?
Lefebvre,
And your position?
Fire Protection Specialist.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your first name?
Brendan?
Okay, thank you.
So, Trevor, would you like to introduce the project to the board? You have to step up and to the microphone. Introduce Tesla and what you anticipate doing here at the site in Old Bridge.
And certainly, sir, if you want to have a seat next to your counsel, that's certainly appropriate.
Trevor Bridge.
All out.
You have to be merciful to the stenographer.
So thank you, everyone, for hearing us this evening. Myself and my counterpart, AJ, over here, represent Tesla. The building is going to be a joint use. So I represent the sales, service, and delivery aspect of the building, which is basically going to be the selling of the vehicles, servicing of the vehicles, and then as we refer to as delivery, which is customers picking up their new vehicles on the property. AJ represents the collision and used refurbishment portion of the building. So we are excited to join a member of the Old Bridge community with our location. The EV kind of movement is massive. I'm sure everyone knows that. You see EVs all over the road. And we're at a point where our business has grown so quickly that we need additional locations, especially in New Jersey. As was stated earlier, this is going to be one of our largest locations in North America, just based on the sheer fact that the EV community is that strong in New Jersey specifically. So this property is very important to us. We're very excited to join the community, and it's going to be a really pivotal component of our ability to grow having this location.
Okay. And you indicated also there'd be sales of used cars, but these would be limited to Tesla vehicles?
Correct. So this location is only going to deal with electric vehicles. So anything that would be, ICE, gas related is not going to be something that we would work with. Those vehicles are immediately transported off-site and auctioned off. We purely deal strictly with electric vehicles.
So in other words, if somebody they could trade in their gas vehicle, but you would immediately ship that off-site?
Correct.
Okay. And then can you explain to the board what you're thinking of in terms of number of employees, hours of operations?
For sure. So I'll try to speak partially for AJ and myself. As I said, we kind of have two separate components of the business. So my portion of the business would probably be approximately about 100 employees. AJ's section, if I'm not mistaken, would start off with, quote me if I'm wrong, somewhere around like 60 employees, and then could potentially grow past that as well based on his needs for the business. So initially, we do expect anywhere from that 150, 160 mark, and then that could potentially continue to grow based on the needs of the particular business. That's kind of where we see the starting point from. And then the nice thing about Tesla is, we're an ever-growing company, and the needs can obviously change, which could potentially have the opportunity to increase that workforce number even higher.
Okay. And what would you think would be the maximum shift on site?
At any given moment, I would say you could see approximately maybe about 60 employees on site. Potentially a little bit more than that, depending on AJ's team. I would say maybe 40 to 60 would probably be reasonable. And I apologize, I missed your first question. Hours of operation would be customer-facing hours, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that would be the customer interaction hours, customers coming in for appointments, servicing, et cetera. We do also anticipate having a earlier shift and a later shift as the business grows as well. So coming in a little bit before that 10 a.m. and staying past that 7 p.m.
Okay. AJ, anything you would like to add?
No, he spoke.
Okay, you got to just pass the mic to him.
Anthony Falasco, AJ Falasco. I'll use this. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not good at bending over that well. No, Trevor spoke eloquently over what we'd be doing. But no, for our side, it would be the refurbishment, and yes, we'd fall within those hours to start. Demand is a big thing, and as we're growing, it would all be Tesla, and specifically Tesla, that our side will be working on there. So.
With that, I just asked if the board has any questions for any of the witnesses, including those who didn't testify.
Professionals?
I don't have anything for these witnesses.
Not at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to ask, how many days a week?
It would be Monday through Saturday. Due to state regulations, we're not conducting business on Sunday in any way.
Thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Damien? Left?
The entrance and exits Are they going to be in the same vicinity?
Yes, our traffic engineer will
Okay,
take you all
fine.
through that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the left? No. Right?
Okay. All four will remain throughout the hearing, so if any other questions come up, we're certainly happy to recall them. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'll move on to Ryan McDermott, who is our site engineer. Where would you like the exhibits to be, these easel?
Over by Damien, I think it's probably best, yeah.
Okay. Yes, okay. And while he's doing that, I pre-marked 4 exhibits. I'll just read them into the record. We pre-marked them with the stenographer, so she has these as well. Exhibit A1 is an aerial map dated October 5th, 2023. Exhibit A2, site plan colored rendering, October 5th, 2023. A3, exterior elevations, May 3rd, 2023. And A4 is the floor plans dated May 3rd, 2023. You have to be sworn in, so.
Of course. Thank you, sir. Do you swear affirm to testify truth in this matter before the board?
I do.
And can we have your name, sir?
Ryan McDermott, McDermott.
And could you give the board an overview of your experience, sir?
Absolutely. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. License is in good standing. I graduated from Rutgers University with a Bachelor's of Science in Engineering. I am a principal at Dynamic Engineering. Professional address is 1904 Lake Como, New Jersey. Been with the firm almost 8 years now. Throughout the course of that time, I've managed and designed dozens of commercial, industrial, and residential projects throughout the state.
And have you been accepted as an expert before boards such as this in the past?
Yes, I have.
We accept your credentials.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to start by quickly reviewing existing conditions, and you'll see how that ties into proposed, because we're really not proposing too many site improvements as part of this job. It's almost a plug and play coming in and retrofitting the existing building. A1, what you're looking at now, is an aerial map exhibit with today's date prepared by my firm. For general orientation purposes, the north arrow points towards the right side of the page, with Route 9 running along the east side, which is the south on this particular sheet here. The parcel is known as 1324 Route 9. It's located between Perrine Road and Poor Farm Road, where it also has frontages, so it does have 3 frontages. Block 6302, lots 2 and 2.14, located in the EDO3 Economic Development Opportunity Zone. The overall parcel is 16.2 acres in size. Located to the north is Poor Farm Road with an automobile dealership and residential uses beyond. To the west, residential uses and wooded area. To the east is Route 9 with commercial uses and wooded area beyond. And then to the south is Perrine Road with an Exxon station and wooded area beyond that. Under existing conditions, Lot 2 is developed with a 1-story building, approximately 140,000 square feet in size, which was formerly occupied by the Lowe's. The lot also contains a large parking area to the south and to the east, and an above-ground stormwater management basin on the north side of the building. Lot 2.14 comprises the common elements of the overall development, including 2 access driveways for the site, as well as an above-ground stormwater management basin at the southwestern corner of the parcel. Access is provided via a one right-in, right-out driveway along Route 9, and 1 full movement driveway on Perrine Road. We're here tonight seeking D3 use variance approval, as well as preliminary and final site plan approval for a proposed new car dealership, which is a conditionally permitted use within the zone. We're proposing to convert the existing building into a Tesla dealership. The site improvements, as I said, are really minor associated with this project. There's an existing fenced-in area at the southeast corner of the building, which was once used as a Lowe's garden center. That fencing and the associated improvements will be removed, and the area will be replaced with additional parking and refurbished with new asphalt pavement. Currently exists as concrete. There are a few existing bump outs and canopies along the front side of the building. That front side is the east, fronting Route 9. Those will be removed, while one of the canopies at the northeast corner of the building will remain. We'll be regrading a small portion of the sidewalk along the building frontage to account for the reduced building footprint, but this project does not propose any changes in the amount of impervious coverage on site. Because this project does not meet the definition of a major development, we are not subject to the stormwater management regulations set forth in NJAC 7:8, which is the state stormwater management regulations. Existing grading and drainage patterns will be maintained. Again, there are currently 2 above-ground stormwater management basins on the overall parcel, which will collect and detain runoff from the building and the parking area, which currently contains several inlets. These basins appear to be functioning properly and in good order, and the applicant will agree to comply with the stormwater management comments of the October 3rd review letter. The applicant further agrees to coordinate with the township engineer and repair or replace existing pavement, curbing, and sidewalk where appropriate. We're also happy to work with the professionals regarding the location and placement of traffic control devices within the site. That was another comment that came up. With respect to parking, at a ratio of 1 per 300 square feet, 458 total spaces are required, and approximately 704 spaces will be provided under proposed conditions. There are 12 existing ADA spaces on site, whereas 15 would be required under proposed conditions. There were a few comments again in the review letter regarding ADA compliance and ensuring that the existing conditions are up to code, and the applicant does agree to comply and update those conditions as necessary, bring it into compliance. We are, however, seeking design waiver relief for the new parking spaces in the gardens, the former garden center. The proposed spaces are 9 by 19 in size, whereas the ordinance requires 10 by 20 feet. However, almost all of the existing spaces on this site are 9 by 19, and the industry standard is 9 by 18. With respect to the EV charging, 18 EV charging spaces are provided south of the main drive aisle from Route 9, and 9 superchargers will be installed in the rear of the building by the northwest corner. Now, because only approximately 60 total spaces will be dedicated as customer parking, that would exceed the requirement of only 3 EV spaces pretty significantly. Again, they're known for their EVs, so we're providing 18 customer-available EV charging stations. With respect to loading, there are 3 traditional loading docks which exist at the southwest corner of the building. Those will remain, and under proposed conditions, there will be 9 roll-up overhead doors on the building. And between the 3 traditional loading docks to remain and there's space behind the building by the existing trash enclosure, we satisfy the requirement for 4 loading spaces on a building of this size, and the plans will be revised to explicitly denote where those loading spaces are, because, again, that was a comment that came up. I'd like to go ahead and flip to A2. Thank you. So this is an overall site plan rendering. Again, this is essentially the overall site plan sheet within our civil set of drawings, added with some color to it. As you can see in the middle of the page there, again, for orientation purposes, the north arrow points towards the right side of the screen. You can see that the proposed building, the existing building is that tan shade in the middle. The canopies are slightly more of an orange hue to them, and the new parking area in the old garden center is that blackish color. Everything else around the building to the east and to the south is existing parking areas, and then south, west, and north is green space and basin areas. Regarding buffering and landscaping, we do recognize part of the conditional use criteria requires buffering to adjacent residential zones or residential uses. Under existing conditions, there is a dense, continuous row of evergreen trees lining the perimeter of the development to the west and to the north. Most of those trees are fully mature and at least 30 feet in height, and in some areas there is a double row of plantings for added screening. Furthermore, the south side of Poor Farm Road, which is on our side of the road, contains dense vegetation along the roadway so that the building really isn't visible as you approach Route 9. I do believe that those plantings that line the perimeter to the west and to the north sides of our curbing were a collaborative effort between the applicant and nearby homeowners during the prior Lowe's application, and the applicant and the operator have every intention of preserving and maintaining that buffer. There are no improvements to the west or the north sides of the building. There were a few comments in the review letter regarding replacing any dead or dying plants, enhancing the landscape beds around the freestanding signs, and adding new landscape islands with shrubs in the main parking area. The applicant would be happy to comply with all of those. Site lighting, there are 38 existing pole-mounted light fixtures on Lot 2. We're proposing to update the fixtures on every single one of those with more modern LED fixtures. And we're also proposing 4 new double-mounted fixtures in the main parking area located east of the building, which brings us closer to compliance and will help minimize the dimly lit areas. Again, there was a comment in the review letter suggesting that we add an additional pole to the southerly parking lot, and we will agree to comply and add that. Regarding signage, there are 2 existing freestanding signs, one adjacent to each driveway. So that's one adjacent to the Route 9 driveway and one adjacent to the driveway on Perrine. The total area of each, again, existing signs, is approximately 200 square feet. This is an existing nonconformity, as the max allowable sign area is 125 square feet. We are not proposing any changes to the structure or to the overall sign area. We're simply proposing to come in and occupy the former Lowe's panel space with a new Tesla panel. So no modifications to the sign area, to the sign structure, just coming in and replacing the panel space on each one of those freestanding signs. Flip to A3 now, John, the one right there on the ground. Thank you. Yes. And these are the building elevations showing you all 4 sides of the building. We're proposing a total of 5 facade signs, all of which are on the east side facing Route 9, whereas the ordinance only allows 1 per frontage. However, as you can see here, particularly looking at the bottom view there, which is the Route 9 frontage, there's really only 1 traditional sign, which is the Tesla badge located over the main entrance. 2 are Tesla logos up by the corners, and the other 2 are service door entry signs. So I'm going to take the mic. I'd like to walk you through exactly where those are. So here's the Tesla badge in the center over the main entrance. There's a logo here in this top left corner, another smaller logo in the top right corner, and then technically these 2 service door entries have signs above them just indicating that they're service roll-up doors. So that's a total of 5 proposed facade signs. Additionally, of those 5 facade signs, the total sign area is only about 170 square feet, whereas the ordinance allows up to 15% of the facade sign area, which would be over 2,000 square feet. So we are coming in well below the intensity of what's allowed, even though we are requesting relief for more signage than what's allowed. Lastly, I do want to touch on the wayfinding or the directional signs. We're proposing a total of 10. For a building of this size, up to 13 are allowed, so we're below the allowable number of directional signs. However, the directional allowable sign area is 4 square feet. We're proposing 6 square feet for each. As you heard from the operations team, this is a bit of a unique use and a unique site for them, that it is sales, service, and delivery facility, serves as multifunction use. And because of the overall parcel size, over 16 acres, we feel that the additional 2 square feet is sufficient. And those details are provided on the civil set, so you can see exactly what we're talking about for 2 additional square feet here. Lastly, John, I did want to touch upon the outside agency approvals, just to give the board a status update of where we are with other outside agencies. We have received conditional approval from the Middlesex County Planning Board. We've received our soil erosion and sediment control certification from Freehold SCD. We've received our letter of no interest from the New Jersey DOT. And from the Old Bridge MUA, we've been in contact with them. Because we are not making any new service connections, they've confirmed that approval is not required from them. And then lastly, regarding the DEP, I know that's something that is frequently on everybody's mind. There are no DEP permits required for this site. Again, the site improvements are very, very minimal, so there's no DEP permitting required here. That was it for my direct, John. I'm happy to help answer any other questions you have.
You want to run through the report? Okay.
Jim? We'll go to the professionals.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant's engineers provided quite a bit of the testimony that we had requested in our review memo. They've agreed to comply with just about most of the engineering comments. We'll get to the planning and traffic as we get those experts on. I do have a couple of things just to sort of wrap things up. On the site plan, we asked for the areas to be designated as far as, inventory spaces, employee parking spaces, service spaces. Is that something you guys would be able to do for us?
We could work with the Tesla team and provide that, absolutely.
Great. And then as far as, are there any plans for cordoning off or section, sort of partitioning the parking as far as fencing and things like that?
There are no plans at this time, but I think that was kind of the intent of some of those wayfinding signs. They're pretty explicit with sales, service, delivery, and directional arrows as to where those will be located.
Right, 'cause I guess what I'm getting at is if there is fencing, then we'd need to have some information about how emergency vehicles will be able to get through and navigate and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I
But
don't-
there's no plans for actual hard fencing throughout the parking lot.
Even in the maintenance, like where you're storing the vehicles that are being serviced, like a service yard, before people pick them up, you don't secure that?
Perfect, all right.
For the record, the Tesla witnesses answered no. I have to get it on the record.
Yeah, I go to the Cherry Hill Tesla, and there's no fences there either. It's just a free-for-all, but you guys have more space for a free-for-all, so. And the other comment, and I think you may have touched on this, but I just want to get some explicit testimony regarding some pedestrian connectivity. That's one of the things that's sort of lacking on the site currently, connectivity from the main, Lowe's building to the pad sites. And we think that given the excess of parking that you do have on the site, that you may be able to work out some sidewalks, crosswalks and all that to get a little bit more pedestrian connectivity from your site to the pad site. I know that if I were to bring my car to get service, I could head on over to, I don't know, to Wendy's or something to get some nuggies.
Yeah, so we did take a look at that collectively, and because this is not your traditional shopping center with inline stores, each one of those uses we feel kind of stands alone on its own. And we do hear your comment about what happens if I'm there, I'm dropping off my car. I think the typical service turnaround time would be 1 to 2 hours, and if it goes beyond that, they offer a lease, or excuse me, maybe not a loaner card.
Uber voucher is usually what I get for you.
And they do actually have a lounge inside as well for people to hang out.
So I'm just thinking that's something that, and again, the board planner, he's not here this evening, that's something that we've been stressing on a lot of applications, especially things like, applications like this, where you have multiple uses, various, variety of uses and pad sites. I think it's something that we're really looking for. So if there's a way we can work out some, again, given the fact that you do have excess parking, and then that we can work out some connectivity, that'll be great.
I think we could probably agree to work something with the professionals, at least to the extent that we can delineate maybe crosswalk striping.
Yeah,
or something along
that's what
those
we're
lines.
looking for. We're not looking for a whole sidewalk network throughout your property. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for connectivity, striping, maybe some little bit of sidewalks or islands or something to get some refuge for people as they're crossing and things like that. But we're not looking for you to make some wholesale pedestrian improvements, but just connectivity is what we're looking for.
Appreciate that, and I think the reason our thought process was leading that way is because we didn't want to eat up too many parking
No, I
spaces.
get it.
But I think
Yeah.
we can work something out.
Okay, great. That answers that. Fencing.
I'll jump in here. You said for these signs, the freestanding signs, you're just going to maintain the existing area?
Correct.
Because it was wasn't really descriptive on the details you had. It basically said that the areas were to be determined. So
I think at the time when we were coordinating with a few different parties, and Tesla has a sign manufacturer that was working on those plans, and then we in turn had to take the sign manufacturer's plans and incorporate them on ours to get them on the record, but it has been determined we are just going to simply replace the panel on those signs.
okay, another thing I think that the town's trying to do is go from the old pylon style signs and go to more monument style signs. Is there any way that you could maybe try to reconstruct? I mean, you've got the pylons in there to maybe put some, different fascias on there, something that maybe match your building. I mean, maybe.
I guess something that's a little bit more congruous with the style of the building. Sorry, Tim. Something that's a little bit more congruous with the style of your building, because it seems like the sign is like the old Lowe's sign, which is pretty basic, right?
And so it sounds like the board would actually prefer to see some repurposing. So I think from our standpoint, we would prefer to keep it as a freestanding pylon sign as opposed to a monument sign, but I think we could come to an agreement
Maybe some sort of.
Cladding or something?
Yeah,
about adding some
exactly.
sort of cladding.
Some sort of improvements that'll sort of make it look like it's something that's fitting the, the style of building that you guys are putting in.
Yeah.
We would like to keep the pylons, though, for a number of reasons. The elevation change,
Yep.
and Route 9 is a very, as you know, very heavily trafficked road. Plus, we already have Wendy's there. And
Yeah, the grade does change there a little bit, and again, the idea certainly isn't to diminish your visibility or anything like that. We're really looking for enhancement, not really, we're not looking to hide your building or hide your facility at all.
We should be able to work that out with you.
Okay.
And also, you talked about the landscaping. I mean, you agreed to do the islands in the middle where you're putting the new
Correct.
lights and all that. And I would just ask that maybe you work with us to maybe, when we're going over, the existing paving and curbs and trying to decide if anything needs to be updated, just review the landscape buffer areas and the condition of the plants. I mean, the thing's been vacant for 10 years now, and a lot of that stuff's getting a little long on the tooth. Probably some of it could stand getting replaced, updated, removed.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen this in the past. Oftentimes, what we'll do is we can conduct a site visit with your office and, get our markups together and come to an agreement on what areas might be able to be supplemented.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I don't have anything further, Mr. Chairman.
I don't either. That's it.
Mr. Dasty?
I don't have it, Mr. Chairman.
We'll go to the board, starting on the left.
So your title is a new car dealer, is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. So you do sales and service.
And delivery, correct.
And because of the unique design in this car, the batteries, where are they stored?
They'll be stored inside the building, but this is probably a better question for the operations team.
Okay. Where is the nearest Tesla plant?
Manufacturing facility?
Yes.
Let's take the mic.
Trevor Bridge. Our closest facility would be, we have two in North America, so we have Austin, Texas, and we have Fremont, California. So Texas would technically be our closest center.
I see. And the majority of these problems with these cars are the batteries, is that correct?
The cars are very simplistic. We don't have engines, we don't have transmissions,
Right,
you don't have
right,
differentials.
right, right.
They're very, very simple. So your
Right.
two main components would be your drive unit and your battery
Okay.
pack.
So the person comes in, has a problem with the battery. Now, you have to wait for that to come from the plant?
We have distribution centers that store them.
But they're not
So-
stored here?
No, just based on the sheer size of them, we wouldn't really have the capacity.
No.
So it would be no different than if you're at a regular dealership, you need a new engine, they ship the engine in, they ship the old one out to be refurbished. Same exact situation with the battery packs.
Thank
If I
you.
could, just in terms of terminology, you're not really a dealer because you're selling your own product.
Correct. We are the manufacturer direct. So the dealership term is used loosely because we are not a dealership. We're not franchised. We are the manufacturer representing ourselves essentially. So we sell direct to consumer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Taylor. Our traffic engineer will be Justin Taylor.
Do you swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this matter before the board?
I do.
Can we have your name, sir?
Justin Taylor, Taylor. I'm a principal in the firm of Dynamic Traffic. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey as well as several other states. I'm also a certified professional traffic operations engineer by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. Practicing traffic engineering for, almost 25 years now. I've testified at hundreds of boards throughout the state of New Jersey, including this board, I think, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
We accept your credentials.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Would you explain to the board what your relationship to this project has been?
Sure. My responsibility as part of this project was to work hand in hand with the civil engineer to review the traffic impact with the proposed redevelopment of the site. As part of that, we technically looked at 3 different avenues of it. We wanted to ensure that there was sufficient parking for the proposed redevelopment.
We wanted to review the traffic impact, and we wanted to review the circulation for this, for the different types of vehicles that we might see for this site. So I'd like to maybe touch on all three of those independently. From an access standpoint, and to Mr. Scongo's, sorry, I totally butchered your name, question, we anticipate and we propose to utilize the existing driveways as they exist out there today. The right-in, right-out driveway along Route 9 southbound, as well as the full movement driveway along Perrine. We just recently received the letter of no interest from the NJDOT saying that the conversion from the Lowe's to the proposed Tesla will not require a new access permit, and that the driveway that's out there today is safe and efficient for what we're proposing for it. So we do not need a new access permit from DOT. We also reviewed the circulation on site to ensure that the types of vehicles that we're anticipating for the facility will be able to navigate through the site. Now, it was designed for a Lowe's. It was designed to handle the tractor-trailer deliveries that the Lowe's got when it was open and operating. And so in a review, we found that the car carriers, which are of similar size to the large WB67s, can navigate through the site just as the Lowe's delivery vehicles did. So there's no real need to modify any of the on-site circulation to accommodate those large vehicles. And then the rest of the cars we're talking about are passenger vehicles. So we, as Mr. McDermott highlighted, with very minimal changes to the site, we can accommodate all those vehicles. We also looked at the parking. Now, you've heard that we need 458, I believe. We are providing close to 700. And the rationale behind that is what you heard. Like other car dealerships, you have inventory spaces that are going to be used for it. There is also in this facility the refurbishing of those used vehicles. And so while we don't need all the parking spaces for employees and for customers, we do need most of those spaces for the storage of that new inventory and refurbished inventory as they're being worked on. So I think the parking that we're proposing is adequate to support the demand of the proposed project. And the final piece that we looked at is traffic impact. Now, when we look at that, we need to look at it not in a vacuum or as this was a virgin land, but it was a Lowe's. It was up and operating at one point. And when we compare the traffic associated with the Lowe's to the traffic associated with the Tesla, from a purely NJDOT standpoint, we're looking at reductions of 20 to 40% in the peak hour volumes. And I honestly, as a professional, don't even think that fully categorizes how things operate, because the NJDOT trip generation rates don't anticipate a 137,000 square foot dealership. They're really looking at the old school dealerships that have maybe 20,000 square feet. And so the formulaic calculations, I think, start to break down. When you look at the employee numbers and the customer numbers that Tesla's told to you this evening, we're looking at 60 to 70 people on there at any one time from an employment standpoint, and then the customers coming to and from. So I think when you look at that compared to the traffic that the Lowe's was generating, we're actually even a greater reduction in what was originally on the site. So I don't see any detrimental impact from the traffic that's associated with this proposed project. I know I've gone very quickly through these things, but from a traffic standpoint, I think this is a home run in the fact that it's a repurposing of a vacant site that's going to generate drastically less traffic than what was originally on the site. And that's already designed to accommodate the tractor trailers and the vehicles that would be servicing the Tesla.
So in your professional opinion, this has been designed in accordance with all the safety standards of a typical traffic requirement for a facility like this?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I have nothing further for this week.
Professionals?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From a traffic standpoint, I agree with Mr. Taylor's testimony that the dealership is, from deliveries and customer traffic and all general traffic, it is actually less intense than a 143,000 square foot retail operation. So from that perspective, it's definitely less intensive. And I agree the site is designed to accommodate all the vehicles that will access it. So there's no real modification necessary. The only stuff we asked for that the applicant site engineer testified to is that the condition of the parking lot and improvements be evaluated and reconstructed or repaired as necessary, and the applicants agreed to that. So I don't have any specific questions for Mr. Taylor. The DOT, the only thing is if you could provide that no interest determination to the board, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
And then other than that, I don't have any questions for the Portage Traffic Engineer.
Mr. Kay?
No, I don't have anything to ask.
Mr. Dasty?
None.
Start with the board on the left. And the only question I had, it seems like there are quite a few employees, 160. Is there a separate lot for the employees?
Trevor Burge again. There would not be. We would probably designate a certain section of the parking lot for employees just to kind of keep it off to the side and keep it, clean for the customers to be able to have easy access to the front of the building. But there wouldn't necessarily be a separate lot per se.
Thank you.
The other thing for clarity, 160 is the total number of employees, but the maximum shift, the testimony would be between 50 and 60.
Very good, thank you. Roseanne?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Batting cleanup is our planner, Paul Greigel. Yeah, what's your walk-up song?
Not interested, man. Do you swear affirm to testify truth in this matter before the board?
I do.
And can we have your name, sir?
Yes, good evening, Paul Greigel, Grygiel.
And your credentials for the record, please.
Yes, I'm a licensed professional planner. I have been since 1999. Also a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners since that date. I'm a principal of the Phillips Price Greigel Laney Hughes planning consulting firm based in Hoboken, but my practice takes me throughout New Jersey and beyond. I've been accepted as an expert witness by this board and over 180 other boards throughout the state as a professional planner.
Thank you, accepted.
And in fact, your firm was the planning, provided the planning testimony for the Lowe's 20 years
That
ago.
is correct. My partner did. And I read the transcripts of the resolution from that, yes.
Okay. So you understand the variances we need. I'll suspend the question and answer.
Okay,
Maybe you
thank
can go through it for the board.
Yes, I think I can be very brief. This application is primarily for D3 variance relief. That's the jurisdictional issue that brings us to this board. But it's a very straightforward, in this case, deviation from conditional use standards for an auto dealership. We do not meet certain standards, and these are primarily for conditions that exist already on the property today. Again, just real quick facts for the record. We're at over 16 acres in site area. The property has 2 vacant buildings on it. The large one we're dealing with has been in that condition since 2011, it's my understanding. So the property is looking to be reoccupied, refurbished for this proposed use. In terms of the zoning regulations we're dealing with, it's the EDO3 zone. Again, the use that's proposed is permitted as a conditional use. There are a number of standards that are required to be met, and we meet a number of them. The ones that are not relate to parking. That's with regard to the front yard setback. It's approximately 8 feet at one location, as pointed out in the review memo. It's supposed to be 25 feet. That relates to a DOT taking in one location. The same goes for front yard buffers. And there's also an existing area of the 50-foot required buffer in the rear that is not met. And actually, looking at the exhibit on the screen, it's due to the jog in the property line towards the left side of the screen. Where you're closest to actual residential uses, you actually have adequate buffering, and there's been testimony with regard to that. The other deviations for the conditional use standards relate to signage. These are all existing conditions, other than adding some facade-mounted signs we heard about and the directional signs. So for those reasons, we are seeking, again, conditional use variance relief. We need to demonstrate in this case that the site can accommodate the use despite not meeting these conditions. And, to be brief about the testimony, I believe the site can accommodate this proposed use despite not meeting these conditions. They relate to specific circumstances that already exist. On the property, again, the signage, we'll work with you to try to upgrade the existing freestanding signage, but the other signage is necessary and appropriate with regard to identifying the use, the various components of the use on the property. With regard to buffering and landscaping, again, we're happy to work with you to enhance that as necessary, to provide additional circulation on site for pedestrians, all those types of things. Just to wrap up on the positive criteria for these D3 variances, the township's master plan actually talks about this property, and specifically with regarding its upgrading, and it's in a zone that looks to have various types of commercial uses, economic development uses. I think this completely fits the bill
and is thoroughly consistent with the master plan's intentions for the area. Again, the conditions that are not met either exist or are appropriate requests for relief. So for those reasons, I do believe that the positive criteria is met for the D3 variances. Just briefly, with regard to the negative criteria, we need to demonstrate there's no substantial detriment to the public good. There's been plenty of testimony regarding the proposal, which I think pretty much covers that in terms of traffic, aesthetics, all the other potential impacts with lighting, pedestrian circulation, et cetera, have all been addressed by other witnesses. So I think in some, reusing existing site and upgrading it actually would be a benefit. It would not have any negative impacts. Likewise, with regard to the master plan and zoning ordinance, again, this is a use that's permitted, and despite not meeting certain conditions, we're thoroughly consistent with the master plan of the township and the intention for this section of the municipality. I could, read verbatim some quotes from the zoning and master plan, but I don't think we need to belabor it. Again, in my opinion, as a planner, dealing with a use that fits in with the character of the area, fits in with the zoning, and despite not meeting certain conditions, can be accommodated.
You just want to quickly touch on the bulk variances?
Yes, we also have a few minor C variances or bulk variances. Actually, these are almost all for existing conditions. They're outlined in the review memo from the board's professionals. Some of these are with regard to the signage. Those are D3 criteria as well, or conditional use criteria, but also are, we need bulk relief from them. Again, I think the variances in that case can be granted under the C2 criteria. The benefits of overhauling this property, providing for an appropriate use, would substantially outweigh any detriments. There's also benefits with regard to identification of the use on the property, wayfinding throughout the property. We do have other C variances for existing conditions, again, that aren't going to be changed. Really, I don't think there are any other new ones at this point that are not being addressed. For example, there were some issues raised with regard to various aspects of the buffering, et cetera. Again, I think they're all existing or being improved. But overall, any C variance relief that's required can be granted under that C2 criteria, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further from Mr. Greigel.
Professionals?
The bulk variances, there's some ones that are kind of new. If you look at the bulk variance listing we have there, there's a requirement for benches, trash receptacles. Now, maybe you have them inside the building. If you discuss maybe that, how you're going to accommodate that. There's nothing that addresses that on the plan. Bicycle parking spaces also, that's another one that require a variance if you're not going to permit it. Or
Right, we
provide
can
it.
add that. We would stipulate that we would add the bicycle rack
Okay.
somewhere on the site.
There's proposed parking, your EV parking in the rear of the building, it's within 15 feet of the building, so that's going to be a bulk variance.
Right.
And that's certainly, something that's warranted. I'm sorry. There's a bulk variance that's going to be required for the EV parking in the rear of the building, the supercharger. The ordinance prohibits parking within 15 feet of a building.
My understanding is those spaces exist currently, and maybe they're not striped out there. Is that up to the northwest corner, I believe, of the building?
Wherever you're putting your new
It's my
EV
recollection,
spaces.
they're up in that area, that you already had parking there previously, so
Okay.
it was
So they're not-
continuing existing condition, if you will. And it's the nature of this use, it makes sense to have them, it's not really a heavily traveled area.
Okay.
So I understand the intent of having a separation, but it's not necessary for that.
There's another ordinance that requires a 5-foot wide sidewalk along the frontage. Maybe the board would want to discuss whether that's appropriate, given it's Route 9. But there's nothing shown on the plans for that.
That's my understanding from the applicant's point of view, is that, it's something that, there's not sidewalk out there for other neighboring properties, and it would not be really serving any pedestrians.
We would ask for that variance because there's really nothing to connect to. I mean, again, it's a,
There really isn't anything out there.
right.
I'm all for connectivity as a planner, but there's nothing there, so yes, I think that variance could be granted if it's required.
And there's some bulk variances for lighting. I think the major one for us was that really dark spot in that southerly parking lot, and I think your engineer said you're going to address that.
Yes, we're going to.
The rest of it's
That's correct.
minor stuff,
Right.
sort of
In terms of the
handle.
amenities, if I could just recall, Mr. Bridge, real quick, would you talk about the lounge that you provide for?
Trevor Rich. Lounge for customers we're speaking of? Correct. So we have a service lounge in the building to accommodate customers waiting for their repairs. Our goal is for the majority of our repairs to have them completed within 1 hour. The cars are very easy to service, so we can achieve, I would say, in some cases, 70% of scheduled repairs for a day in less than 1 hour. So we have a lounge in the building to accommodate customers. We typically have water, a coffee bar, maybe some minor refreshments. So comfortable area, usually a TV, playing some, Tesla materials. But again, the need to leave is minimal. We actually encourage the customers to stay so they can get in and out as fast as possible and get back to their day versus having to spend, hours in a service area waiting for their vehicle to be completed.
And getting back to the conditional deviations, like the planner said, one of the first one's the parking area. You're supposed to have a 25-foot setback for the new cars. Well, a lot of the site does have that. I think initially, when that site was built, it
did.
probably did. And it looks like what happened, the NJDOT came along and took some of the right-of-way so they could put that overhead sign there. So you got that small area. And so that's nothing that they can really address rather than go in and change their whole parking lot. I guess the other thing is the buffer requirement. There was a 25-foot setback for buffering, but if you go through the ordinance, it says you don't want to buffer too highly, so you're going to, obviously it's new cars that are going to be parked out there. You don't want to block them. So it's kind of a de minimis deviation, really. And I think the engineers already agreed to meet with us and, dress up any areas that need new planting, and we can probably come up with some nice different kinds of plants that would enhance that area and still make those cars visible. And also they've agreed to make new islands in the middle of the parking lot, which makes more sense for, when you have car displays, it's not going to block them, and you can do a nicer job with that. So, I think that more than compensates for any deviation that front setback is for the buffer. And the signs, I think that's typical for, a new car dealership. The facades, they're set back pretty far, so you need a lot of signs, and the areas aren't exorbitant. So I think that's, he's given good justification for those, and they're willing to work with the style of the freestanding signs and enhance those so they're a little bit more modern and sort of complement the building architecture. So,
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Anything else?
I guess the only thing that I would add, Mr. Chairman, is with regard to the D3 use variance relief, and I'm really just summarizing what the applicant's planner said, is that a D3 use variance is, again, it's a conditional use variance, so it's the use itself has already been deemed by the governing body to be appropriate and permitted for this zone. However, they felt the need to impose certain conditions that need to be met in order for that use to be permitted, and this applicant doesn't meet all those conditions. The three that are noted by the applicant are the items that they deviate from. So I say that to say that the burden of proof or what you're looking at isn't necessarily the impacts of the use itself. It's the ills that go along with the deviations, which in this case are the existing non-conforming condition with regard to the parking and the buffer and the signage. So if you feel those are appropriate, then that's really what you're focusing on, as opposed to the actual use itself, which has already been deemed to be appropriate and permitted in this zone by the governing body.
Mr. Dasty, your comments on that?
Yeah, so a D3 variance, the town's already said that this use is acceptable in this area. So it really is an analysis as to whether the site is suitable to meet the use and what I think the testimony has been the minor deviations from the conditions of the zone.
So within the, we would put conditions upon the existing use?
No. Well, no, it's a permitted use in the zone as long as certain conditions are met, and the applicant is here before the board because they cannot meet all of the conditions of the zoning ordinance. So that's why it's a D3 use variance, because it's a conditional use variance. They can't meet all of the requirements, but as the applicant's professionals that have testified, the site certainly is well suited for these minor deviations for its intended use.
Very good. I'll go to the board for comments, starting on the left.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Very good. Thank you.
Okay. That really completes our presentation, but for coming back, we'd ask, first of all, I'd ask for, I neglected at the beginning to ask for a notice to be accepted and jurisdiction taken, but I think we're past that. But so since our jurisdiction has been taken, carry us to November 2nd. We understand that agenda's full and something might come off and we might be able to come in, but if not, then at that meeting would be carried to a special hearing. We hope that Mr. Amakis's good graces will get us and our adjacent property owner together and work out the issues we want to work out. And we would come back solely to address those issues. I would not be bringing anybody else back, but except probably this, definitely the site engineer, possibly the traffic engineer as well.
I think that's appropriate. I would just ask and see if there's any member of the public here that has any questions. I don't think that there is, but, sir? I'm sorry, this is on another matter. We'll have a general public comment at the end, so if there's anybody here on this application. All right. So, Mr. Chairman, I think that you can announce that the next calendared hearing will be November 2, although testimony may not happen at that date. And at that point, you can ask for a motion to carry the application if there's nothing further.
Very good. So we'll place this on the calendar for November 2nd. I'll ask for a motion to carry that. Chevalier approved. Stoner second. Roll call. Yes.
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 Thank you. The only other thing I'd ask, and I'll work with Mr. Dasty on that, is Tesla's really anxious to get started. Maybe we could have a resolution prepared in advance for whenever if we get carried to and possibly vote and memorialize simultaneously.
We usually don't do it that way with D variances, but I can tell you that there will be we'll try. All right, that's about all I can tell you.
Yeah,
okay?
well, appreciate
All
it
right.
very much if we could. I know, like I said, I think they want to be open in the spring, so.
I can tell you that if it does not happen at that date, our meetings are every 2 weeks, so I can assure you it'll be on the next agenda.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So I got a card for you too.
Oh, thank you. Okay. And we appreciate your time tonight and the accommodation of carrying us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. So the public portion on this matter is closed. I'll open it up to general comments from the public.
Is this the appropriate microphone? Yeah. I just wanted to make a brief comment on the MCB waiver application. I'm sorry.
So you're not commenting on our application?
This is a general.
Okay.
This is general comments?
Sir, if you can, please raise your hands and be sworn in. State your name.
My name is Jonathan Michael Koslick, Senior Esquire. I reside at.
I'm sorry, sir.
Go ahead. 4248 County Road 516. I am neighbor to the applicant of 4244 MCB Landscaping.
Okay, sir, and you swear or affirm to testify as to whatever you're going to testify
I
to?
swear.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I just had two quick comments on the MCB landscaping waivers. One is, Ms. Sawant's recommendation was not to waive all 5 waivers, it was to waive 3. It was 3A, 3D, and 3E. But that is what it is. The more pertinent portion I want to focus on is when that attorney stated to you that it was not, Ms. Sawant didn't make it clear that it was a bifurcated claim, and there was some misunderstanding. I would very much like to send you the minutes from that meeting, and then I would like you to compare them to what that attorney said when assessing the credibility of the applicant.
Well, sir, I mean, the applicant's not here right now. I mean, one of the matters is.
Just the video. I would just look at what that attorney said and then look at the video of the original assertion by Ms. Sawant, where she clearly went into like a several-minute dialogue as to the bifurcated nature of the application.
Okay.
And that's all.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I don't think there's anything further, and for the record, I think we're ending pretty early, Mr. Chairman, so we can't tell Chairman Sullivan that, I don't think.
Very efficient meeting, Mr. Dasty. Any comments from the board?
No, you did a good job.
Motion to adjourn? I'll second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Anyone opposed?
We go through it.